Despite what anyone thinks of Mel Gibson on a personal level, I think it's hard to argue that he isn't a really good film director. That being said, this low-budget thriller looks a little outside of his common epics of violence. Well, I got a chance to watch it, and I'll let you know my thoughts in this spoiler-free review of Flight Risk. Winston is in custody as a key witness against a powerful criminal. Now, Agent Madeline is flying him from his hiding place in Alaska back to civilization to be questioned. The only problem is the pilot, Daryl, isn't who he says he is. He is an assassin sent to kill Winston before he can testify. Now, trapped in a small plane over the mountains of Alaska, Madeline must do everything within her power to stop Daryl and bring Winston home so justice can be served. From the first trailer, Flight Risk had me apprehensive, and I grew even more doubtful in the opening minutes of the film that are filled with cheesy dialogue and cliché plot points. The good news is that intro only lasts a few moments, and once our characters are in the plane and it lifts off, the tension is quite thick. And what really surprises me is this tension continues to build throughout the story. This is where the direction plays a part. Gibson takes his time allowing the characters to experience the normal uneasiness of flying. Loud noise, shaking, bumps, turbulence. Madeline tightens her grip on the door handle so we recognize her level of discomfort. Then of course, other problems arise. The GPS is acting funny, the mountains are making the radio sporadic, and a cloud hampers their vision. Meanwhile, Daryl is saying some odd things and has some odd wounds and blood on his clothes. This all develops slowly, building the tension and making me feel their claustrophobia, understanding their restlessness, which of course leads to some intense thrills and chills. It may be an obvious comparison, but this film is very much Speed in an airplane. But where that movie was fun, the biggest negative of Flight Risk is it's kinda mean and nasty. Marky Mark, minus his funky bunch and wearing the worst bald cap in film history, isn't just a murderous assassin. His character is also a pervert and a masochist. He doesn't just want to kill his victims, he wants them to suffer and explains it all to them in grotesque detail a lot throughout the film. This isn't just an instance or two, this is a theme throughout the film. And what it does is it takes this small action film that really feels like a 90s thriller and disrupts much of the fun that made those movies like Speed, The Rock, Heat, True Lies flourish, and replaces it with these darker tones. And I'm sure some people prefer this misery, but it really contrasts the cheesy humor that pops up throughout Flight Risk. Specifically from Winston, played by Topher Grace, who I think is a really good actor in the right role. Here he's a bit too sarcastic with his Marvel-esque jokes during serious moments. Then you have the aforementioned Marky Mark, who is a fascinating actor because he can be quite good. Note The Departed or Pain and Gain, but when he is bad, it is historic. Example, The Happening. This film is probably closer to the latter because though he isn't asked to do much of the heavy lifting, his performance is probably the weakest. In fact, I did notice that in one scene after being knocked out by a taser, he couldn't even act like he was unconscious, and I've never seen that. But this movie really belongs to Michelle Dockery, best known as Mary in Downton Abbey. At first, she seems a bit stiff, but as the tension builds, her performance adds depth and keeps this film from totally crashing and burning. And once again, we are reminded as to how much Mel Gibson loves his violence. He really is an interesting director to study because he really seems to value pain in his characters, almost as if it's a form of their redemption. And I think those instances played out much better in Braveheart, The Passion of the Christ, Hacksaw Ridge, and my favorite film from him, Apocalypto. But here, specifically Marky Mark's dialogue, it just felt excessive. Now, I have heard some really negative reactions to this movie, and I don't think that's fair because I believe Flight Risk is, at its core, a flashback to those fun 90s films, of which Mel Gibson is definitely familiar. I just feel like the dark tones here detract from its ability to have mass appeal, which is a shame because it features some real glimmers of old school Hollywood thrills. But I can't give it any higher than 3 out of 5 stars, which certainly isn't great, but it's nowhere near as bad as some audiences are making it sound. What do you think of Mel Gibson and his film Flight Risk? Am I being too kind? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss any of my future reviews. Also, you can check out some of my other reviews by clicking on one of these boxes.